Move on to the next part of the program, which is the panel discussion. And for that, may I invite on stage Most Reverend Theodore Mascarenhas, Secretary General of CBCI. If you could come up, please, to felicitate our panelists. Friends, to anchor the panel discussion, we have with us Sunetra Chowdhury, popular journalist and anchor with NDTV 24/7. Can we give her a loud round of applause, please? Sunetra, thank you so much. And you will be felicitated, as will all our panelists be felicitated, with yellow roses, which signifies true friendship. Sunetra Chowdhury began her career with Indian Express in 1999, where she later became its deputy chief reporter. In 2002, she began her TV career with Star News. The following year, she shifted to NDTV, where she still works tirelessly as an anchor and reporter, covering everything from natural disasters to crime, investigations, and politics. She published a book titled Breaking News, based on a time set 2 months before the general elections in May 2009. In 2015, she received the Red Ink Award for her story on how disabled children were being adopted by Indian families for the very first time. And I now invite our panelists. Our first panelist this afternoon is also one of our 2 guests of honor today. Please put your hands together for His Grace, the Most Reverend Thomas D'Souza, Archbishop of Kolkata and Chairman of the CBCI Office for Education and Culture. Our second panelist today is Dr. Michael V. Williams, a well-known media personality, having spent over 2 decades in television news and entertainment. Dr. Michael Williams is at present the Dean of the Mount Carmel Schools. As Dean, he enjoys interacting with students and staff and seeks to empower tomorrow's leaders with a Bible-based moral compass. He is committed to the task of making school education in sync with modern industry and society. Dr. Michael Williams. Our next panelist is Franklin Caesar Thomas. He is a practicing advocate in the Supreme Court. He is deeply involved with trying to lift the socio-educational, economic, and cultural backwardness of Dalit Christians to bring them at par with Dalit Hindus, Dalit Sikhs, and Dalit Buddhists. As an advocate and human rights defender, Mr. Thomas is involved in the eradication of untouchability and fighting for gender justice to women, along with his legal profession. Friends, we have Franklin Caesar Thomas. Our next panelist is Dr. Annabel Benjamin Bara. Dr. Benjamin is an MBA topper and the first tribal to do his PhD from XLRI Jamshedpur, where he is now a visiting professor. He has been working with 2 Gram Sabhas as the chief advisor and consultant and is associated with various NGOs to work in the area of tribal development. He has also published and presented various papers at national and international platforms. Can we put our hands together for Dr. Benjamin, please? And last but not the least, may I invite Dr. Vijayesh Lal, General Secretary of the Evangelical Fellowship of India. He actively helps to advocate for the poor and marginalized by training and addressing the important issues by way of articulating biblical values. Dr. Vijayesh Lal is also the Executive Director of Light Foundation, Noida. Friends, can we put our hands together for Dr. Lal, please? Thank you so much. So we have our 5 panelists, and we have Sunetra. Sunetra, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Andrew, thanks. Am I audible to everyone? Yeah. Thanks very much, Andrew, and the CBCI for inviting me over here. No, you can't hear me? Can you please fix the audio? Can you hear me at the back? I think so. Thanks. It's really relevant right now, and for someone like me who's in the news right now, to come and speak to all of you about love your neighbor, because it's a theme that seems very relevant to people who cover the news. Just about a kilometer from here this morning, the big discussion in Parliament was the one about the NRC. And I think this theme may be very different there, but it's still about loving your neighbor. What constitutes a citizen? What constitutes a citizen's rights? Who are the people that should be let into stay? These are kind of themes which are so universal, and I think they are the themes that are at the basic end of what makes up India in our country and what makes our nation what it is today. So it's really interesting to all of us, as commentators, as news reporters, to hear from all of you about what is happening in the mind of the Christian community and community leaders like yourself. The other interesting aspect of this, as far as I'm concerned, why I'm happy to be here to talk to all of you, is there have been, of late, a lot of discussion in the media about certain concerns raised within the community. Archbishop, I'm going to talk to you about that as well. We've been speaking to the Archbishop of Delhi, the Archbishop of Mumbai, and of course the Archbishop of Goa has raised it, which I think makes this particular theme of love your neighbor very, very relevant right now, when they raised concerns about what the people, what Christian community members are speaking and thinking about, which is why it's interesting to not just have Archbishop your views, but also the views of other community leaders. For instance, yours, as someone who runs a school here in the capital. I'm also holding up some of the figures that have come in from the NCRB, the Crime Records Bureau of India, compiled actually by the Evangelical Fellowship, which looks at the rising crime against Christian community members, perhaps one of the sources of fear within the community. We just heard Julio Ribeiro, who's never afraid to speak to the media that way. He's very forthcoming with his views. We just heard him up there. One of the things that he said, which struck out to me, is when he spoke to members of the church, when he spoke to the community, Julio Ribeiro seemed to be urging all of you to speak up much more. Do you think you need to do that, sir?
Mr. Julio Ribeiro has been a forthright speaker, speaking his mind loud and clear, very especially as a Catholic, and we all admire what he has done, what he is, and what he says. I feel, following his footsteps in a way, the church in India, Catholic Christian church in India, has a message to offer to the entire country at this time. There are imaginary fears in the minds of others, and therefore about the community, the Christian Catholic community, and therefore the reaction in different ways have been experienced on individuals, on the community, on institutions, etc. And at this time, where there is hatred, where there is violence, both verbal and real, I feel the church has this message loud and clear to give to all. Is a message that we have learned from our Lord Jesus Christ, the message of love. And therefore, loving our neighbor simply means accepting all in this country, people of all faiths, of all cultures, of all background, of all together as our brothers and sisters, and to serve them. As we had so many who have given us the example of service, which Ms. Julia Ribeiro said so beautifully. Everything is service, and this is what we are for. The church stands for service, for peace, and for the rights of the poor, to give them dignity, and to uplift the poor. And this has been the mission of the church, and we're very happy to it, but often misunderstood. And that is where we have to make our message loud and clear. We are here not as a threat, but we are here to serve, to give ourselves in a way, in that service, for the upliftment of the poor, following the example of our founder, our master, Lord Jesus Christ. And therefore, in these days where we have, in a way, that hatred, that violence, that atmosphere of suspicion, the church once again has this message of the gospel. We love our neighbor, and we will do all that we can to continue this mission of love. We'll do all without any fear to serve people of all faiths and religion, irrespective of caste, creed, and culture, so that this message, this compassion will reach all. That is what we want to proclaim to all.
And Archbishop, when you talk about the imagined fears that some people may have, do you think, I want to just expand on that a little bit, do you think that fear is that the church may sometimes, in some quarters or in some people's mind, be equated with conversions? Is that the fear that some people bear against the church?
I think so. Very often we hear that the church is out there to convert people. Conversion seems to be the fear that many have. But it is not true. It is not true. The church is not there to convert. If that were so, our numbers would have multiplied. We are a small, tiny minority in our country. And over the years, this minority would have become a large number, but it is not. Through our education institutions, through our other institutions, the people we serve, the personnel that are associated with our institutions, etc., with the community, the numbers would have gone up. Certainly the church is not there for conversion. This again what I call imaginary and false fear. We are there to serve. We are there to serve and to proclaim the message of love. The message of love. Of course, very often this service that we render to the poor, to people, can be misinterpreted as inducement, that we are using fraudulent means, we are forcing, etc., which is again has no basis at all. And therefore, I'd like to make it very clear, the church is not there to convert. Certainly, we pray for a conversion of heart of all, that hatred be given up, that there be love, compassion, understanding, and there be harmony, peace among all of us. And that requires a greater conversion of heart, giving up selfishness, etc. That is the type of conversion we pray for, but it is not conversion as the others understand.
Thank you for that. Dr. Lal, I just wanted to bring you in. We just heard Archbishop speaking over here. Earlier in the year, we heard two archbishops speaking. We heard the Archbishop of Delhi. We also read about what the Archbishop of Goa has said. Despite their messaging being very, very clear to all of us, and the messaging, if I read it right, and if all of us in the media read it right, was we are a little scared. We are a little scared, the community is a bit scared of what's happening, and we want something to change. We want things to be fixed. When Julio Ribeiro, however, says that the community is not protesting enough, people should be standing up and protesting much more about what's happening. Do you think that's correct? Where do you think the church objects enough, or is it that we are making too much of what may not be there?
First of all, going back to the letters the letters were basically call for prayer. The letter from the Archbishop of Delhi over here. And every church, every Sunday, prays for the nation, throughout the nation of India. I pray personally every day for my nation. I pray for the Prime Minister, I pray for the President, and all constitutional authorities. And by the way, 12th of August this year, in fact, the Sunday closest to the Independence Day, I represent the Evangelical Fellowship of India. EFI calls for every Sunday which is closest to the Independence Day is our National Day of Prayer. So that letter should have been taken in the correct spirit. It was a letter, a call to prayer, and it was addressed to the faithful. Now, whether the community is protesting enough or is not protesting enough, that remains a very, very subjective thing. Mr. Ribeiro has his views. I have my own views.
Tell us yours.
Yeah, the community must speak out, definitely, but the community must speak out against every injustice, against everything that is wrong within our society, and our society definitely seems to be missing out on love and empathy. For example, there was a lot of talk about tolerance a couple of days ago, a couple of years ago. We must be tolerant, and India is a very tolerant country, and so on and so forth. The constitution of our nation takes it a step further. It's not good enough to be tolerant. It says we must have fraternity, friendship with each other. We must learn to accommodate each other, learn to understand and appreciate each other. Differences must be celebrated. Jesus Christ takes it a step further. He says fraternity is not enough, there must be love. You must love your neighbor. Despite the atmosphere of fear, despite the atmosphere of hate, I'm not going to deny it, it's there.
Can you tell me what causes that? Because I know Archbishop would be more diplomatic.
Archbishop just said it is a perception.
What is creating that perception?
Insecurities, I would say. Mother Teresa, there has been a lot of fingers being pointed onto Mother Teresa. People have said stuff about her which is certainly should not have been said. Mother Teresa's, what made her powerful? Do you think it was conversions that made her powerful? No, she had the power of love. She had the guts to stand before the President of America and tell him, you're wrong on abortion. That was the power of love, and he stood silent. The church has one weapon in its arsenal. It's a very potent weapon. It's the weapon of love. And we will continue to exercise that weapon even in the face of all the hatred. Yes, we will speak out, but more than that, we will continue to love.
That's interesting. As someone who runs a school, because I keep hearing, and from the letters of the archbishops that have emerged of late, we talk about this atmosphere of fear. Could you give us instances, apart from the one that you just mentioned, Dr. Lal just mentioned about the references to Mother Teresa? Could you give us some other instances of what's happened of late which has spread this atmosphere of fear?
As a journalist, I'm sure you've got all the data of incidents that have happened, much more than I would, and my human memory may fail me. But over the last few years, we've noticed, whether they are a group of people carol singing, whether they're a group of people inside their home in a private way, there seems to be a concerted effort to create this misinformation that what they're all about is conversions. One of the things that I must point out is It's not what we as Christians have to do. What we as Christians have to do is we have to pray to our Lord Jesus. But what do we as Indian citizens have to do? We are all citizens under the same constitution. So I think each person that is sitting over here as a citizen of India needs to exercise his right. What Reverend Vijesh Lal was talking about, that we must all speak up against all inequalities, injustices that are happening that are contrary to constitution. The point of the matter is, two sane adults can understand, then one cannot convert the other. There is no magic juice that are poured over you and you become a fairy godmother. Those are just, fairy tales, and we know that. Actual, real change is what happens inside. And that nobody can change. Not even a heart transplant specialist. So if you were to actually look at the rhetoric that these people are involved in conversions, that's just bunkum. That's information being given to the illiterate to whip them up. But in real life, as we just heard Bishop say, where are the numbers? Where are the statistics that support any of this? The second part is that the Constitution allows anybody to follow any faith they so choose. That's the beauty of our nation and of our Constitution. Post-independence, Dr. Ambedkar, the author, the father of our Constitution, and 9 lakh others decided to follow the path of Buddhism publicly. Their choice. Completely their choice. That is what the Constitution is about. So if today you decide you want to be a Buddhist, and somebody else decides he wants to be a Sikh, and somebody says I want to be a Christian, that's their choice. They may go to something else tomorrow, that's their choice. They may not want to. But for anybody to pick and choose and say that's a weak point and they're guilty, that's rubbish. And I think in this nation, at this time, that is what one should be intolerant of.
Archbishop, is that something that you're working with the government with, or working with other leaders with, in getting rid of this fear that everybody here is talking about?
Yes, but especially in our education institutions, we sometimes become target of various sectors, especially regarding what you said about conversion or other accusations. You know, we are also, we have introduced, not that they were not there, introduced modules of the Constitution of India. We must know more about the Constitution of India, our rights, so that knowing them, we also develop respect for one another, and also knowing our rights, we know where we exactly stand and how to demand them, so that, we are not a threat, certainly not, but we are loyal citizens of this country who have every right following the Constitution. So this is one way of getting rid of that fear which the others have or that we have of, about this. And therefore, for us, it has been an experience of knowing our country better, our Constitution better, our rights better, so that we demand them. And as Mr. Romero said, the Lord's command, when somebody slaps you on one cheek, show the other. But also we take the example of Jesus himself. When he was struck on one cheek, he asked the one who did that, he said, if I have done something wrong, show me the wrong. If I have not done anything wrong, why do you slap me? And I think that also has to be our reply to things when we are accused wrongly, to say, why are you doing this? And I think constitutions are guarantee for that, and we must know that certainly better, and we are doing that, and our rights, etc., and work on that.
And speaking of the Constitution, the legal person on our panel is, of course, Franklin Thomas. I wanted to ask you, you also represent the rights of Dalit Christians, and Dalits have been a group that has been of late, and in the past 3-4 years, in fact, we have witnessed rising crimes. If we talk about rising crimes against Christians, then there have been increasingly lots of crimes against Dalit groups as well, leading to an atmosphere of fear there as well. How do you think, how much of what we've been talking about holds true especially for Dalit Christians?
Thank you, madam, for the question. On behalf of my organization, National Council of Dalit Christians, I am pleased to present my sincere thanks to Education Commission of Catholic Bishops Conference of India and Secretary Catholic Bishops Conference of India and Pilar Fathers to give me this opportunity. Our main focus is to get the scheduled caste status to Christians of scheduled caste origin, because I have to praise the fame of our beloved leader, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who said, my final advice is to educate, agitate, organize. Have faith on yourself. When justice is on our side, I don't see we could fail. Our fight, it is not for the social or economical cause. Our fight, it is for the reclamation of human dignity. It's a very, very important factor. Reclamation of human dignity. Before UN coined this word, Ambedkar coined the word reclamation of human dignity. Based upon the word reclamation of human dignity, he wrote Article 14, Article 15, Article 16, which talk about equality and non-discrimination. Article 25, which talk about religious freedom. 26, 29. Article 17, which talk about the abolition of untouchability. We are not following it. As forerunner, the leading revolutionary, Jesus said, love thy neighbor as thyself. Dr. Ambedkar put it in our Indian constitution. This is a very, very important factor. Nowadays, the atrocity against the scheduled caste people and the scheduled tribe, it's going very high. But we are proudly telling, we had abolished untouchability as per Article 17, which is a mockery. We are not doing justice to the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribe. Another thing is, as Christians of scheduled caste origin, we are facing the traditional practice of untouchability in the civil society and in the wider society. As per Constitution, Scheduled Caste Order 1950, paragraph 3, we are prevented to avail the scheduled caste status par with the scheduled caste Hindus, scheduled caste Buddhists, and scheduled caste Sikh. Again and again we are blamed that Christians are converting the people. In the year 1971, the Christian population, it was 2.6 crore, so 2.6%. Now as on date, 2011 census, it has come down to
That's right.
2.34. The problem is, because 70% of the people are there in Christianity who are from the scheduled caste background, since these people are not entitled to get the scheduled caste status after coming to Christianity, they are reverting back to other religion for availing the scheduled caste status.
Okay.
As on date, 5 million people had been reconverted to majority religion for availing the status. Instead, we are in the Christianity, the Dalit, the scheduled caste population is going down. Christian population is also going down. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I think you articulate the struggles of the community and what has been happening of late very, very well. If I can come to you now, Dr. Bara, because you work with, away from Delhi, in many of those areas that you work in, especially if we talk about Jharkhand, some of the instances that have led to this atmosphere of fear, which you were talking about, whether it's the, people being attacked, there have been instances from there which have come out. Do you see, what is the message that has gone down to the people that you work with?
Well, definitely, there's an atmosphere of fear, there is an atmosphere of insecurity, and when I see the people, the tribal population there, then I could find that they are very simple people. And when Swamiji had raised this question, and you have also raised this question of, conversion, there is a blame that game going on on the missionaries that they are converting people. First, let me ask you the question, what is the definition of conversion? Can you tell me, madam? I'm asking you. What is the definition of conversion?
Are you asking
Yeah,
me?
I'm asking you.
Well, suppose I'm, of course,
Yeah.
if I'm converted to Christian.
What
then-
is the definition of conversion? I'm just asking a simple question. Please tell me. No, I'm just asking you. So that based on that, I'll be answering that same question.
Embracing another religion.
Are you talking based on the religion? Okay. Well, my point of looking, the question of conversion, it's not about actually conversion. It is about orientation. It's all about perception. You know, for example, we are sitting over here in a large big crowd over here, and a person sitting next to us is coughing. Then what will you do? Generally, what does a person next to you, a neighbor, does? If you are coughing, sir, what will I do? I will offer you a glass of water, or I will offer you, say, sir, just take this thing and just be cool down. What is happening over here? When I'm doing a good deed for him or her, now what is the thing which is changing inside her? The perception is changing. The orientation is changing. My neighbor is good. My neighbor is taking care of myself. And with that, if you try to take this word, if you want to define this thing as conversion, then yes, I'm converting him. I am converting his perception. I am converting his, orientation towards me just because I'm doing good to him. As Jesus Christ said, do unto others what you would like them to do unto you. If you define this thing as conversion, then I would say, yes, Jesus Christ converted. Missionaries have converted. But is this the definition? We are taking it in a wrong route. And when we are talking about the tribal population in the whole 9 states of a country, here, as you said, sir, hardly less than 3% of the population is Christian. And apart from that Christian, only 1.3 crores are Catholics. Minuscule, nothing. So when you are talking about the statistics, then where do you find this thing converting from religion to religion? Is that thing matter, converting from one religion to another religion? Or does that matter when you are changing the thinking pattern, when you are reshaping or reorienting the person from becoming a bad person to a good person? That is most important thing which we have to look. That is what Christ has asked us. When that lady who was a sinful prostitute and the Pharisees came and asked Jesus, she is a sinful lady, what is you have to do for her? According to the book of law, we have to stone her to death. What is your judgment? What did Jesus said? Jesus simply said, he said, out of all of you, if anyone who have not sinned at all, that person should be the one who cast first stone at her. So this is taking a different route. That is my thing.
One of the things that someone pointed out to me, Archbishop, is that so many of us, whether we are in Delhi, whatever religious background all of us may be from, I think what all of us, if you take a poll in this hall itself, if you ask how many people went to a convent school, I think a lot of us would say we all went to convent schools. Isn't it the ideal background for people to understand? Because we've all come from a convent school background, and we all know the kind of investments in education that the church does. Doesn't that make it much easier to spread the positivity though? And to have ambassadors all over, whether it's in the government or anywhere else. Everybody has that kind of background.
You're right. I think we have ambassadors everywhere because they have been through our education institutions, they've imbibed those values that were given to them and in which they grew up. We have ambassadors. But I think there are also other pressures on a number of them. Probably from different quarters, not to either support or come to the support or the help of maybe the Christian community, etc., or even to those institutions where they studied, etc. So there could be one with the pressure that is there, or maybe some other fear. If I do this, what will others say? Will I be able to have a stand in my own community or to group which I belong? But I'm sure in the depth of their own hearts, they have those values still there. We see that so often when we visit government offices, etc. People are very nice, very kind, most of the time, because they have been through our institutions. But it could have been much more. Could have been much more. Come to support, especially when, say, people need to be supported, to be defended, and prompt responses to come forth, etc. There could have been much more support. But I'm sure the heart of hearts, those values which we have given them are still there, but due to other factors, they may not be able to express and live.
I couldn't convince you to expand on those other factors.
As I said, maybe those factors of pressure, prejudice, and their own standing. If I say that, where will I stand? Will I have a future? About their own life, etc. Probably that in a way makes them less responsive when time comes. They do not rise to the occasion because of these fears, I'm afraid.
So, Dr. Lal, some people point out that one of the biggest attacks, one of the biggest forms of cracking down has been on cutting down on donations, foreign donations. How much has that been an aspect? Could you talk about that?
I'll talk about cutting down on donations. But before that, let me also expound on us as a society in general. The theme is very pertinent, love your neighbor. What you see, the atmosphere of hate, the atmosphere of insecurity and fear that we are talking about, it comes because of an ideology of hatred. It comes because of an ideology of exclusion. And I believe Indians need to be geared towards a different narrative, a narrative of inclusion, a narrative, of understanding each other. That kind of narrative is something that we need to push. If we are able to actively do that as citizens, as responsible people, I'm pretty sure that the incidents of attack, the atmosphere of hate, even lynchings, everything is going to come down.
They're all tied up, you think?
They're all tied up. It is a narrative, it is a narrative that is being fed to people. Let me illustrate that with an example. I live in Noida. When Dadri happened, a clock happened, I use Ola and Uber all the time. I was going down from Noida to, I think, Chanakyapuri. And my driver was just like any other normal Indian. And since Dadri was a hot topic, I started chatting with him. I said, what do you think happened? Do you think they could have done things differently? And I was shocked with the answer. He said, Jo hua theek hua.
Sorry?
Jo hua theek hua. What he was actually validating what had happened at Dadri. And he was a normal man, piling his taxi. Many Muslims would come and sit on his taxi. Many Christians would come and sit on his taxi. But inside of the heart, the problem is of the heart. The problem is of the mindset. There was a certain ideology at work. I said, maybe this is what has gone wrong with us. Hatred has consumed us so much more that we've forgotten to love. Now coming to the foreign funds part of it. I don't, there has been the foreign funds do make a difference. For example, if I give you an example of Compassion International, it's a much talked about case. What's happening to all those children that Compassion was serving? Nobody's serving them anymore. So foreign funds do make a difference over there. Will they make a huge difference in the life of the church? Don't think so. But yes, will they affect the service of the church? Yes, they will affect the service of the church. And the plan is to marginalize the church and move it away from the center of society into the peripheries. And that is why perhaps that is being used as a route, because the church is seen as an influencer for good, you know. And that kind of empowerment maybe some forces do not want. And that is why when you look at Christians, and I'm talking about the Christian community over here, all the major attacks that have taken place against Christians since 1996 onwards, major attacks, have been in tribal areas.
Yes.
We've been documenting it since 1998 as EFI. You know, there is a reason for that. The church is involved in service. The church is involved in empowerment. And the same forces that want to deprive the church of the so-called foreign funding, so-called foreign hand, you know, do not want these people to be empowered.
Okay, that's a really important point, and I think we just have about 5 minutes or so to wrap up before the Chief Minister comes as well. I just wanted to ask you, since he mentioned that point of most of these attacks have been in tribal areas, just to wrap up, what would you say the community or perhaps the government, anyone needs to do to minimize or put an end to such kind of either the fear factor or such kind of incidents taking place? What is needed?
Let me very clearly say, we are, as Christians, Catholic, Protestant and independent churches, we are fully fulfilling 25% of the educational need of this country, not only to Christians, scheduled caste or scheduled tribe, through our institution like the St. Stephen's College, Christian Medical College, Vellore, St. John's Medical College, many alma maters which we have in the cities, convents, through which we have empowered other religious people. This is the fact. We now, thanks to this Catholic Bishops' Conference of India's Education Commission, they have brought exclusive policy for the empowerment, educational empowerment of scheduled caste and the scheduled tribe. Wherever you go, the marginalized people like scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, they are attacked. What is the remedy? Remedy is, in our institutions to the small children, we have to give the moral instruction. Whether we give moral instruction or not, we have to teach the Indian Constitution, which talk about the version which we discussed, love thy neighbor as thyself. For example, Article 21 very clearly says right to life, right to have freedom. Not only for rich and elite, city dwellers, it is for the marginalized people, those who are there in the slums, as tribals, as scheduled caste. When you teach Article 17 to your children, which talk about eradication of untouchability, we have abolished untouchability. They will have it in their mind. Untouchability is a crime. If we do the crime, we will be prosecuted. So, once again, I beg these churches, you did yeoman service to other religious elite people. You have done a lot of things for the cause of marginalized, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe. Once again, you mainly focus on the empowerment of scheduled caste and the scheduled tribe as usual, so that you will be having much more mass which will be thankful to your yeoman service, which you do on the basis of love the neighbor as thyself. Thank you.
That's quite an idealistic solution as well, to go right back to, of course, it is what we know as the only way to fix anything, to go back to education, to go back to the classroom, but it is also, of course, a very long-term solution that you talk about, to teach our children that we are talking about. And if we look for more urgent solutions, so would you have, Dr. Williams, do you have any more urgent solutions to wrap up with?
I'll tell you, Sunitra, the most important thing is that our generation is the one that needs to deal with this problem and deal with it well now. We must take into consideration that the year India became a republic, 1950, the year we got independence, 1947, is reset, 0 year for all of us. From there you start counting and see how we all as communities have done together, worked together in nation building. If you go back thousands of years or hundreds of years and look back constantly and try to run forward, you're not going to make much progress. You're only going to run into each other or into obstacles. Let's focus, let's teach, let's work together post-independence the way we've been doing it to build the nation that the Constitution in its preamble and every part of it has envisaged. If I was to look at nation building, and this is not to throw numbers out, but 1965, the very first big war that India got into, the first time the Indian Air Force came in, 35% of the fighter pilots were Christians. The very first plane that was shot down skies of Pakistan was by a Christian pilot, Keeler, Trevor Keeler. The first Veer Chakra was received. So I'm just saying this contribution in armed forces, in education, in hospitals, in welfare, everywhere. Now when you say what is urgent, I think what our nation's leaders are talking about is very important, and I think the church and the school, everything is working together. There is a vision of a Swachh Bharat, which is so important. It is vital for us to clean up everything. And the church is saying, look, along with the Swachh Bharat, you need to be a Swachh Bharatiya. Clean up your own act inside, clean up the outside, and together we get a clean nation. It cannot be one side. So I think the church, the Christian community, and the people in power are working together. It's the same goal, but the objective is to clean the inside and the outside. This generation gets it. The coming children are getting it. I want the rhetoric from the older generation to stop, and that's got to end. And now we need to make sure that this message of peace and harmony is rung clear in everybody's minds.
And Dr. Bara, if you could speak for the, for the people that you work with, that's the marginalized there in tribal areas, what do you think they need right now? From the policymakers, from people here in Delhi, if you could be their voice for them, what would they be saying?
One word answer is smile. They need a smile. Why? I'll tell you. When you do something good for the other, if you want to see that you are successful or not, you just see the face of the other, and if that person is smiling at you, that is success. That is what the tribal people want. They want the dignity, as Sir said, human dignity. They want respect. They want their rights to be heard. They want their lives to be, to be respected as a human only. That is the main fundamental thing. And when missionaries, I have seen missionaries, Father, going deep into the jungle, where you can say that Naxalites area, where police forces are unable to go inside, there the missionaries are working, living in a small cottage. They don't have anyone to, in the kitchen also to serve them food. They're preparing the food on their own, living a very pathetic life. But in spite of that thing, they've got the passion to work. And when they go inside the field to work with the people cheer up, they smile and then say, Father Ji, Namaste. Jai Yeshu Father Ji, please, aiye. That smile is what we want. We want our smiles back. We want our dignity back. And this is what our missionary is giving through educating us, through uplifting us, through telling us the rights of what we are, protecting our land, labors, water, mountains, everything. This is what we want. That is the only call. As the representative from the tribal community, I would like that this thing should be heard, because I know better that if you really want to have success, if you really want to see the upliftment of the marginalized, bring smile to their face. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. I think that brings us to the end of our dialogue and discussion. I can tell you that the media is always listening to all the voices, and we are here to amplify it, to get it across to people, and that's what those cameras at the end of the room are for. So make sure that if there's anything, that you make your voice heard to all of us. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sunetra. A special thank you to all our panelists. Friends, can we give them a louder round of applause, please?